So in a lot of ways, the play is about obligation. It's about honoring our different obligations, how we are obligated, and how that can be a beautiful thing. But it's one of the great tensions in human lives. I mean, how many hats can one person wear, and yet you're expected to wear them all, and you're expected to function at the highest possible level with it. I am my mother's son. I am my wife's husband. One day I will be my children's father. I am my student's mentor and teacher. I am my friend's friend. I am a lot of things to a lot of people, and I have to function in all of those capacities at my very best every day, or I'm not doing my job. And the characters in this play, some of them are a little more demanding of one another. As you notice, at the heart of this play, there are tensions between a mother who has always been very demanding, but now her physical needs are incredibly demanding because she can no longer walk. She can't take care of herself. And she's haunted by these ideas that maybe they don't owe her that. Maybe they don't have to take care of her because she thinks maybe she didn't take good enough care of them. She says in it, I was a part-time artist, I was a part-time mother, I was a part-time wife, I was all parts fool. Because she felt like she subdivided herself in a lot of ways. And maybe that's what we all do. So it's really just exploring those kinds of tensions in life. How to be the best that we can be at every single thing that we have to do. And it just uses arts, the career of the arts, to explore that, because I know about that career. I work in it. I'm not a dancer, obviously, but I've chosen to make this a dancer because there was something about the evocative nature of dance which communicated a lot of these themes on an emotional and visceral level. That's the initial inspiration for the play, was that I had the vision of the old woman. I mean, originally like an 80-something-year-old woman dressed in a beautiful gown, dancing this Martha Graham-style modern dance that's kind of pulling down the sky, lamentation sort of thing. And in this beautiful light, in this ethereal dream world where she existed almost in her mind the way she was in the past. And then there's this light transition to fluorescent, and she dances back and she fades into this bed. And then you see she's just in this nursing home or this assisted care facility. That was the entire inspiration. I wrote that down one night around 10 o'clock in the evening, and I kept writing, and I wrote into the very next evening, and I wrote the whole play in sequence, and it just came out of me. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say it, but I think it's a beautiful play. I'm very proud of it. And more than just about obligations and the tensions of freedom, right? The responsibility of freedom. It is about entertainment itself. It's about forms of entertainment that have passed away, and in that way, a way of life that is passing away, a way of communing with each other, looking each other in the eye before technology. It's I say in the author's note, it's a love letter to a golden age of entertainment, but with that golden age comes what we call a simpler time. Of course, it wasn't a simpler time, but we didn't have all these things that disconnect us now, like this very device into which I am talking. So I hope you enjoy Pas Deux. There's a lot going on in it. I think there's a little something in it for everybody. And of course, it is very funny. It's human. So be human, dance the step of two, and enjoy the show.
Well, it's been an interesting process because I've had these threefold duties: directing, sound design, set design. But really, all of those kind of blend very closely together because sound, especially, it's an internal kind of thing. So it's all what's going on in your head, and then it's just projected out there. I think a lot of directors tend to have more of a sound design in mind than a lot of other designs because it's just something that really closely ties with the thematics that you're trying to achieve and things, and set as well, because obviously you're blocking it, so you know you want somebody here, you want somebody there, so you kind of have an idea of the layout anyway. So then to just be able to draw it out and map it out and say, okay, this is where this is going to be, this is where that's going to be, it makes the whole staging process a little bit simpler. And I was able to give it to Derek, and we were able to achieve pretty much exactly what I had in mind. And then sound as well, you know, this show relies very heavily on sound, because there's songs, there's dances, very closely tied to the American musical tradition. And so it was beneficial for me to be able to work on any element of sound that would need a fix as soon as possible. I didn't have to coordinate with anybody. I could just be like, okay, this song needs to be faster, this song needs to be slower. I did all the sung songs in GarageBand, so that allowed me to be able to tailor them to exactly what I felt fit. And everything else just was kind of a process of tying the themes together and making a coherent whole. So really it was a smooth process of tying those things together and just having the show in mind and then getting it out there and communicating it to the design team and my actors. And I feel that what we've got is helpful to have the playwright on hand to be able to discuss anything with him. And so I achieved really what he intended and what I saw as the best direction for the show.
So I wanted, when I did this design, I really wanted to like take that really beautiful contrast that's in this show about, you know, it's like having that nursing home, that assisted living versus the Broadway stage, that the vitality, I wanted to bring the vitality and life of the stage and directly contrast it with kind of like the still, stark, almost hopeless feel of like a hospital that's very sterile. And I wanted to bring that, and I wanted to put them in direct contrast with each other. And so I started with a nursing home, and I said, what gives that unique feel to a nursing home, and how can I bring that through with lights? And so, you know, the first thing that popped in my head, I was just like, oh yeah, fluorescence. So that's the first thing I came across. And I did a little research, and I found that the fluorescence that they use in nursing homes and hospitals to make it feel very sterile and clean, they use 4100K as the color wave, and so 4100K bulbs. So I bought some of those, and I said, why can't I just hang a fluorescent instrument from the ceiling and plug it into the grid? You know, instead of like trying to mimic how fluorescent top light feels with incandescent lighting instruments, I said, let's just put in a fluorescent instrument. So I put in 2 of those, and then I ordered bulbs that like they traditionally use in hospitals. And then with that number, that 4100K as the color, really, like the color wavelength popped in my head, and I said, hey, wait, I know a gel that takes the incandescent color of a normal bulb and boosts it up to 4100K. So it's a Roscoe 3204. And so I was like, oh, that's perfect. I can start from there. So I had this really sterile, cold light that looks really natural. It had this really, it was such a natural feel that I think lent itself so well to those scenes, because any life and vitality that's left in that nursing home is brought in through the characters almost like a breath of fresh air. And so I wanted to really create a realistic environment for that and juxtapose it heavily against kind of the surrealist like dream sequences that are kind of like take place in this just unrealistic kind of ethereal stage. And so I looked at the lights for that. I know I want the Broadway scenes to really be full of life but also movement. You know, it's such an important thing to me that Adriana can't walk. She's lost the ability to be an artist. So it's very still in the nursing home with there's not a lot, their body doesn't catch a lot of new lights. It's all pretty flat. So I said, how can I make it really pop? So I put in side lights on each side, kind of a top side light and a side light pointing up at them. And then I put in top lights. I used a lot of different colors so that every time that they moved on the stage, their body caught a different light. So if they twisted their arm caught a different light in a different area. So it felt very alive and full of movement. But it couldn't just all be color, because that would feel too surrealistic. So I hit it with 2 RO2s and as gels and put them in there. And I really liked it because it had this really warm butterscotch feel, which I think is great, that fits really well with the character of Candyman, and it's like what he brings to Adriana's life. And kind of the candy with all the colors of lights. I used purples, top lights, pink up lights, in, you know, these warm fronts one of the coolest things that accidentally happened was I was looking through for the purple, and I was looking through it, and I found one that was burnt out, and I accidentally grabbed it and put it in a gel frame and put it on the light, so it was purple on the outside, but it was burnt through a little in the center with blue, and I thought, wow, we only have limited instruments, but I can use a burnt gel to add an extra color into that mix. So I actually intentionally burn out the color on another one that I could place right in the center over as a top light. I wanted to play heavily with painting the stage on these dream sequences, where it's functional light versus purely aesthetic. There's 2 scoops just pointed right at the back walls of the nursing home. They don't hit anybody in the face. They don't serve any purpose except to be aesthetically there. I kind of wanted to push boundaries and make bold choices, and I'm really proud that I got to do that.
I am the technical director for the Department of Theater and Dance. Basically, I'm given drawings by the scenic designer, and from there, the scenic designer hands me drawings and says, make this. And the stage is my playground. The stage is my canvas, and I paint that set physically with my hands and whatever students I have around, and we throw the set on stage. This process, it was a lot of fun. It was a play that I read for the first time 2 or 3 years ago and fell in love with it, and I've been looking forward to it all year. And I was really looking forward to working with Andrew on it. Andrew, he's in the shop with me every single day, and so every single day this year we've talked about this set. Even when we didn't know who the scenic designer was going to be, Andrew just decided he was going to be the scenic designer, and he sees the show in his head a certain specific way. And as the director, he's got to make sure everything fits well. So him being the scenic designer worked out well. We talked a lot about the set leading up to it, though. Ideas that I had, ideas that he had. You know what, to be honest with you, I think his design came into the middle of how I saw the show and how he saw the show. When Andrew handed me his designs, from there, not only as a technical director, but also as his faculty leader, I coached him and talked to him a lot about the set, and I didn't want to change anything, really. But, the floor, as you'll see, we've done a really cool tile pattern with it. Andrew's floor had a lot of yellow and red spatters and spackles in it that I talked to him about, advised him that that might not be a good way to go. So he said, no, okay. So what we did was we stripped the color down. That's where I really collaborated with Andrew the most, was the color of the set. There's a lot of just dreariness and moments of seclusion, isolation, sadness, incarceration, themes of that nature that are so thick in this play. So we think to ourselves, how can we not make this a prison, but make it a place that you don't want to be, that doesn't breathe any new life into anything. If anything, it just sucks that life into it, and then you just see pale, dull colors. So we talked a lot about colors and how those can affect the mood. And what's really great is that the colors that aren't present on the set make it available for all the other colors and the lighting design and the costume design to just bleed out and just explode and escape and be their own thing. And that was the collaboration I had with Andrew, was on color and look of the show. And then when it came time to building the set itself, some things changed here and there. To be honest with you, yeah, we cut flat here or there. We added a flat to the side. We talked about adding a whole nother unit behind it. We talked about how we want that brick wall to look. We talked about if we need a door here or a door there for another room. But what we really wanted to do was just whittle it down to the bare essentials and make this an easy set to build for 2 reasons. One, we're on a bit of a crunch, but also because it doesn't need that. The story itself is so rich. We could put nothing on the stage, and I think audience members would just be so affected by what we have to tell them. And how did I build it? Lots of flats, really simple set to put together. Just flats, slap up some flats, stick a door here, a window there, and you have it good. But it's the details and the hints in this set that you don't even notice that we took time to put there. Discoloration of the walls. You notice the walls look a little discolored in some spots. That's on purpose. The floor itself was a big undertaking once you see the floor. Tons and tons of things that add up to small details put this show together.
I'd have to say the overall idea was that we wanted to keep these characters youthful. Despite the fact that, these 19, 20-year-olds were acting as people twice, 3 times their age. We wanted to keep them looking young so that the actors themselves could, keep this. They could portray this aged look in their acting rather than the makeup. That was the most difficult part overall for me. For each character, I'd say the most difficult was Adriana, because she, of course, is the key character, and I wanted to really take a lot of time on her and just trying to decide how much aging to do on her to make her still keep this youth, but at the same time portray, with the help of the actors, this aged woman who lost, her capabilities as a dancer in many ways. So it was really difficult to do her makeup, but I think it turned out well in the end. And also when she puts on makeup on stage, the old-timey makeup that we went with, we wanted to look back on 1940s, 1930s ballerinas. So that's what I researched, taking pictures, taking photographs of beautiful, French ballerinas, taking that makeup and applying it to Claire, our actress's face. And I think it worked out really well on stage to portray this kind of, this dated but beautiful look on her. That it looks like a lot of makeup when you put it on an older woman, because, she doesn't usually wear that. It's a ballerina, it's for the stage. And here she is putting it on for everyday use. After I did Adriana, I looked at Jacqueline, because I wanted the two to contrast each other but at the same time complement each other, because Jacqueline is described as indescribably beautiful. We wanted to capture that, and so I kind of took kind of the celebrity, kind of perfect, like no pores, being able to be seen. So I bronzed her, I made her look like the movie stars do when they go out on the red carpet. And so at the same time, I want to reflect that and kind of the makeup, like the dated, almost as a contrast between her elegant, really starkly like beautiful and perfect look compared to Adriana, who's putting on makeup of an era that was so many years ago. It was like two different celebrities at two different times, kind of competing with one another. Her husband, Stanton's character, is Dorian. He was really easy because there's so little makeup was supposed to be used, throughout the play anyway, that Stanton was just like, for Dorian, we're gonna ruffle his hair because he's a little bit less perfect than his wife. Unkempt hair, and kept his beard, drew a little bags under the eyes, because next to his wife, especially, actually, he and his unruffled, his ruffledness makes her look even, more beautiful. Vicky is the nurse, so for Deandra's face, first she just looks really tired because she has no makeup on. It's just base and just aging. In the beginning, she has more aging some of the older characters, just because the older characters hide it better than she does, and it's reflected in her character a lot as she grows and she gets closer to Adriana. Vicky, as she gets closer to Adriana, she begins to realize her own youth, I feel like, and she portrays that in herself in the way that she takes care of herself, because by the second act, we then add a little makeup, we take the aging and the bags under the eyes away, and we add some blush, and we add some mascara, because she starts taking care of herself, realizing, I don't have to look my age. I can, I can be young still. And she realizes that from Adriana. Milo, the Candyman, in fact, I have him written as the Candyman on my face cheek, because I loved that he was referred to as the Candyman, and I took that to heart when I did his character, because his whole character is based on the fact that he was an old man, but he was so bright and happy, and I just captured that in his cheeks. And so there was this bright, happy blush on his face, and aging all around it. He's the most aging that I do. There's these bright, happy, apple cheeks that just capture his youth, and hopefully will, as the actor captures it in his acting as well. The whole process was enlightening in my own, and for myself, and a great process, just getting to know the characters and getting to do this was such a pleasure, and I loved every minute of it.
I started off reading the script and trying to get ideas from that, and I knew I wanted to show a contrast between the dream sequence scenes and the stark reality, and just show the difference between those two realities. One was glamorous, one was stark and boring and depressing. So I did have a little trouble at first, but I was flipping through magazines one day and I came across this black dress. Immediately I got an idea and I started thinking, oh, now I really like this dress. I really want this dress in my dance between the battle between Adriana and Jacqueline. So after I decided on that dress, I just started thinking of more ideas, how glamorous I wanted the dream sequences, and then I started thinking of character choices, how I wanted the more elderly characters to portray a sort of nostalgia for the past, for what they couldn't do anymore. So I wanted them to be a little more classical, although still in the modern era. So started looking at styles maybe 20 years back, and then while the younger ones, such as Dorian and Jacqueline, I still had them a little more modern, but not completely totally modern. I just started getting more ideas, and then I knew the first dance that Adriana did is based on Lamentation by Martha Graham, so I looked up the dance and I looked up a bunch of pictures, and I really liked the idea of how she's dancing in this tube, and it's supposed to represent both her physical and her mental limitation, like constraints, and how the tube is almost a second skin. When she dances, she's trying to break out of it. She's pushing and pulling at the fabric, but nothing's giving way. So she's got all these emotions and feelings and physical limitations, but she still can't break free of it. That's sort of what the dance represents. Also, with Milo, he sort of has almost the same outfit the entire time. It's this seersucker suit. He's got a very vaudeville style around him, and what I wanted to do with that, even though he's wearing that both in the dream and reality, is because he's got a little bit more nostalgia for the dream, and he's still stuck in that world, more so than all the other characters, which just shows the difference he portrays, and that how he brings more life into Adriana's life, and more joy and happiness that she had before, because before she was just despairing because all she could do was sit in bed all day, and she started dressing up more, and I just wanted to make it